So even though the Republicans have 4 races that they could choose from, that there's actual competitive race that they could choose an option, they don't have a choice for governor. Matt Bevin's going to be the governor. Matt Bevin's going to get renominated. The polls are saying this. The Signal poll had him up by 30 to 40 points. Wasn't even funny. And then the other 2 challengers, they're only polling at 1%. And then the other guy, he's got that scandal over his head. So even though he is really criticizing Bevin, typically, if you had a fair election, I don't know. I mean, you got to check out that sexual assault. There should be due process. They should hurry up and just get it solved in court. But Matt Bevin is going to win. Matt Bevin is going to win. Matt Bevin is destroying all the other 3 Republican candidates, so it doesn't even matter if you go out to go vote for Matt Bevin. What the Republicans do need to focus on, because these races are not determined at all. Most Kentuckians don't even know about the Attorney General candidates or the Secretary of State candidates or the Agricultural Commissioner race. So Kentucky Republicans actually have 3 races that they can jump into. And these races can go either way because most people don't know about them. They're only polling at 11, 10%, and then most of them are undecided. So you got such a big undecided poll, it could switch the election, substantially. So let's take a look at the Attorney General's race, right? So both candidates for the Attorney General flying under the radar. 47% of Republicans have not heard who Daniel Cameron is, nor have they heard who Wil Shroder is. Wil Shroder or Daniel Cameron is going to be the nominee for the Republican ticket for Attorney General, who's going to run against Greg Stumbo. Currently, Daniel Cameron has a 7-point advantage over Wil Shroder, according to the Signal poll. And, there's some problems with the polls, but it's scientific, so it's telling us some kind of truth.
But
would you allow schools to still not allow people to bring them in?
Here's the thing, what we need to find out, I need to know, as far as the Constitution, did the General Assembly in the 90s overstep their bounds whenever they said that they can enact legislation against open carry? Because the Constitution reads that you're allowed to defend yourself and others in the state.
So for you,
Daniel Cameron has 26% support versus Wil Shroder's 19%, and 56 are undecided. 56% are undecided. So you think that 56% of the people can sway 7%? Of course they can. They can sway 7% 7 times, almost 8 times over. So, and these are high propensity voters. So these are the people that's going to go vote. 56% of the voters who always vote have no idea who they're going to vote for between Daniel Cameron and Wil Shroder. So this is important because the election for the Attorney General could go towards Daniel Cameron, who's winning by 7 points until the 56% show up. So nobody knows how this thing is going to turn out, except for that Daniel Cameron is the front runner right now. But, it's not over until it's over. It's not over until the final, scoreboard. So Daniel Cameron, he says he's going to carry the Trump agenda with him to Frankfurt. Daniel Cameron has $286,000 in his coffers, plus the super PAC. Wil Shroder has $135,000. So Wil Shroder, even though he's been endorsed by the Senate Republican caucus and Rand Paul and a whole bunch of other people, he looks like on paper he's not going to win because he doesn't have the TV ads, he doesn't have the money, and Daniel Cameron just, looks like a pretty perfect little picture. Whereas Wil Shroder seems like he's got, hustle on his own. But that ad wasn't bad. At first it scared me, made me a little nervous. I started wondering if, there was like some racist element to it. But ultimately, what the ad is, he's shooting at the TV, and he was saying that the TV lies. Elvis used to shoot the TV. Hunter S. Thompson used to shoot his typewriter. So, it's a gunshot. Gunshots are, a little scary, but it's saying, fuck your message. Fuck the words that are coming out of your mouth. Fuck the bullshit that you're speaking right now. Fuck the bullshit you're spewing.
Hello, I'm Carl TrumpNet, asking for your vote for Secretary of State in the May 21 Republican primary. Politics is a dirty business. It's filled with mudslinging and character assassinations, libel, slander. I've certainly been the victim of a lot of that. But here's the important thing for you to know. I'm the single most thoroughly vetted candidate for public office in the history of Kentucky. I'm in my 17th consecutive year with an active top secret SCI clearance. I've served our country as a member of the Presidential Protective Division of the U.S. Secret Service and the National Clandestine Service, the CIA.
So let's do a little profile on the Kentucky State Senator Wil Shroder of Wilder. He's a state senator from Campbell County. He's 36 years old, so he's born in 1982 in June. Wil Shroder is an attorney who prosecuted felony cases in Campbell County for 6 years as an assistant Commonwealth's attorney. Wil Shroder is endorsed by the Senate Republican caucus, plus the Lieutenant Governor candidate Ralph Alvarado. He's also endorsed Wil Shroder. Wil Shroder is a Christian. He loves Donald Trump. He loves guns. He's very pro-Second Amendment. He hates the red flag legislation. He will not pass any red flag legislation. He gets an A rating from the NRA. He's pro-life. He was in favor of that right-to-work bill. He's not really for gaming. He says that gaming only helps Cincinnati's general fund by 2%, so they're promising all this money when it comes to casinos, but he's not really, gung-ho about casinos. He's a crime fighter. He hates illegals. He wants a border wall for Kentucky to stop all those Tennesseans and those Hoosiers and those Illinoisan terrorists from crossing the border. So don't worry, Kentucky. The influx of non-Kentucky citizens will stop with Wil Shroder, right? Not the poverty or the STDs or the heart disease, but all those illegal immigrants coming out of Tennessee, all those terrorists. I always appreciated Tennessee because it kept all the racism of Mississippi and Alabama out of it, right? There was a buffer there. And Kentucky fought for the Union. They fought for the North. They fought for America. They fought for Abraham Lincoln.
I've received an offer from the FBI as a special agent. I've run one of the most sensitive operations of the government at Joint Task Force Guantanamo. Since my 20s, I've been under enormous personal scrutiny, more so than any other politician, perhaps ever. For example, I've had federal agents canvass my neighborhood, talking to my neighbors and former neighbors. I talked to my former classmates and teachers, my former co-workers and employers, my friends and my friends of friends. I've been subjected to random drug testing, to psychological evaluations, to checks of my tax returns and my credit history. I've had to report all close and continuing contact with foreign national, all overseas travel. My family members have been investigated both by blood and by marriage.
So both Wil Shroder and Daniel Cameron are for building a gigantic border wall all around Kentucky to stop the immigrant invasion. The massive exodus of Kentucky's brain drain will also stop too, because when you wall people out, you're actually walling people in. So that's to make sure that the Kentucky people stay right there, always and forever. Amen. Wil Shroder actually voted against the charter school bill. So Wil Shroder seems to be in favor of public education, or maybe he just didn't like that charter school bill. And so he's not really for gaming. He doesn't think that gaming is going to bring all the money that people say it will. He's in favor of right to work because he believes that a person could break the union. So he believes that a person could break a contract, a closed shop contract between workers and employers. He's in favor of life, right? So he's anti-choice. He's got an A rating from the NRA, so don't expect him to do any gun control. He would defend pro-life legislation happily, so would Daniel Cameron. Wil Shroder says he's running on the border wall issue, even though it's not a state issue. He does mention that 16 Democrat attorney generals sued Donald Trump over his national emergency declaration over immigration. So that's why he said that he talked about illegals and that he was for the border wall. So he said that he would file a legal brief in support of Trump's immigration policies. That's the reason why he ran that ad where he shot the TV. No, he ran the ad where he shot the TV because he, supports Trump's immigration policies. Get the fuck out of there. He was going for dramatic effect, and he's just trying to say he's a Republican, and that's why he's a Republican. So he wanted to pass some legislation to make it illegal to pass information about minors after that Covington Catholic debacle with that MAGA boy and that MAGA hat, which he did nothing wrong. That boy did nothing wrong, and the media, about destroyed him. So I'm actually glad there's people that's going to defend somebody that was nonviolent. He didn't do nothing. He was nonviolent. He just stood there. What's the fucking crime? He had a smirk? Get the fuck out of here. Ain't no goddamn crime. Listen to the shit that he was hearing. God, those people were saying way worse shit than what he, whatever his smirk. He didn't say nothing. So they were saying, worse shit, and he would just remain silent. Isn't that pretty actually remarkable? You don't have to react to people, cussing you out. You could just stand there in splendid silence.
Any scumbag can get elected to public office, but very few politicians can, and none have withstood the scrutiny that I've been subjected to, again, since my 20s. So the point is this: whenever you hear anything negative about me, whenever you read anything negative about me, whenever someone whispers something negative about me in your ear, just ask yourself one question. Could that be true? And Carl Nett hold the highest security clearance in the U.S. government since his 20s? If the question gives you even a moment of pause, then you know that I am being lied about, and more important, you are being lied to. I need your vote, May 21, for accountability and transparency in government. Carl Nett, nothing but Nett.
So those are a lot of his issues. He's very pro-Second Amendment. He's against the red flag legislation. It was passed in Colorado, but he would never pass it in Kentucky. He believes that just because you have a complaint, that's not due process. Anybody can complain against you, and now your guns are getting taken away just from a complaint? No, there's got to be due process. There's got to be a conviction. So he is pro-Second Amendment. And, you know, I respect actually both positions on that. So he's, you know, pro-right to work, pro-life. He's pro-Second Amendment. The charter school bill, he voted against it for some reason. He's not really for casinos. He wants a border wall. He's a strong Republican. And Shroder, when he talks about Andy Beshear, this is going to be interesting because these are going to be the words that's going to bite Wil Shroder in the ass. But hopefully he's actually telling the truth. Hopefully this, you know, non-Attorney General Wil Shroder will look at the Attorney General Wil Shroder and say, yeah, I guess I did say that. So Wil Shroder doesn't like what Andy Beshear is doing. So he's saying that Andy Beshear has turned the Attorney General's race or the Attorney General office into a political office. So it's not just, you know, make sure that the laws are being followed, but this is a, you know, jumping off point to the governor's chair. This is a way to harass the Republican governor for your own political career. So Wil Shroder doesn't like that Andy Beshear has been suing Matt Bevin left and right about, you know, the teacher strikes and the raising or the cutting of the pay and the revenue and going through the legislature. So Wil Shroder says, as the Attorney General, you're the top law enforcement. You're the chief prosecutor of the Commonwealth of Kentucky. He's not going to use the office as a jumping off point. He's going to be the best Attorney General ever in Kentucky history. That's exactly what I want from my candidates. You're going to use this seat like Michael G. Adams. He's going to become Secretary of State to use that chair to jump off into the U.S. Senate. That's according to Carl Nett. Now, Carl Nett just said it in a video once. I don't know, you know, I wish he was more detailed with these accusations. But I'm inclined to believe him. So it sounds like something, you know, a corrupt person would say. So he's sitting there saying you're the top law enforcement, you're the chief prosecutor, you're not going to, when it comes to enforcing the laws, which is enforcing the laws of the legislature and the General Assembly, you're not there as a rubber stamp for the governor, you're actually there to enforce the law. So what Wil Shroder said he's going to ask himself, let's assume a Democrat governor gets in there and Wil Shroder is the Republican Attorney General. Wil Shroder has said that he, as Attorney General, would ask himself not, how can I make political pop shots, but are they following the law? Are they following the law or not? Simple question. You want to make some political pop shots, you want to sue something that gets into the newspapers, but you know has no, you know, teeth or has no actual bearing when it comes to the law? Well, you know that shit is bullshit. In fact, that should be illegal, right? You shouldn't be able to make political lawsuits. You can't have frivolous political lawsuits. You got to say, hey, they broke this law. This is the law that they broke, and, you know, and go from there. So make sure Wil Shroder remembers that. If a Democrat becomes governor and he's just making political pop shots, well, you know that he was, you know, a hypocritical piece of shit. But if Wil Shroder gets in there and he constantly asks himself, yeah, I can make political hay out of this, but are they following the law? And if he can't say that they're not following the law, then he cannot continue with his lawsuit. On marijuana, I couldn't actually get a specific answer from Wil Shroder on marijuana. I know that Daniel Cameron hates recreational marijuana. He doesn't want to add another, you know, drug onto the marketplace. So he's anti-drugs. Daniel Cameron is going to stop the war on drugs. I haven't heard Wil Shroder talk that kind of talk. And since Rand Paul had supported him, Rand Paul's opposed to the war on terror, and he's opposed to the war on drugs. Because as a libertarian, you have a right to your own body. Wil Shroder had also been involved in passing a Good Samaritan bill for the addicts. Drug addicts were dying, so he passed a bill where drug addicts can get access to Narcan. He also had a Good Samaritan clause, which allows friends to help an overdose victim to get to the hospital without being arrested. So sometimes you'll have an overdose victim and you don't want to do anything about it and hope that they just, get over it by themselves, because if they take it to the hospital, they're going to get arrested. So he actually passed some reduce the harm measures. We got to reduce the harm. So I'm not for sure if Wil Shroder is against marijuana and if he's against the war on drugs. I have no idea. I know that on medical marijuana he was against tax, so he says you shouldn't tax medicine. So that seems like he's okay with medical marijuana. In fact, he's so okay with medical marijuana, you shouldn't add a tax onto it, because other medicine isn't taxed. If it's truly medicine and there's medicinal purposes, then you shouldn't tax medicine. So he also said before he supports medical marijuana, he wants it taken off the federal Schedule I ruling. So the federal government needs to make sure that marijuana is not illegal. So he's saying that the federal law is against it, so it seems like he's, hedging on a little bit, but he's also allowing room for me to imagine that perhaps he might be in favor of medical or decriminalization or full-blown legalization. He was endorsed by Rand Paul. So his stance on marijuana is not clear. He did pass Narcan out to drug addicts, and the Good Samaritan clause allows people who might have been involved with the overdose victim to not get arrested for taking them to the hospital. So there's Wil Shroder. There's a little bit about Wil Shroder.
I am running for Kentucky Attorney General, and I ask for your vote on May 21. I ask for your vote on May 21 because this is the critical office. This is the office of ultimate action as it relates to the public safety challenge of our lifetime, and that is the drug epidemic. And I think that Andy Beshear has squandered. He has squandered his opportunity to be the leading voice on this issue. He has abdicated. He has abdicated his responsibility as it relates to this issue and to the public safety interest of all the men and women and children of all 120 counties. And I think that we need an Attorney General that has a strong relationship with law enforcement. Instead, what Andy Beshear has opted to do is fight the governor at every turn on every piece of critical legislation that is passed out of the General Assembly. And we cannot afford another 4 years of that sort of activity out of the Attorney General's office.